We are expecting a news conference to start here. Really
put together. What are you laughing at?
I'm not sure that he has the kids on it like you do.
That's
but
fine.
you know,
have a good show.
Connell, thank you, brother. Catch you tomorrow. Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on News Nation. Headed home. President Trump set to land from his visit to Scotland and revealing to reporters on Air Force One exactly why he says he cut ties with Jeffrey Epstein.
People were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that.
And now there is a new plea from Ghislaine Maxwell that, by the way, was just shot down by Congress. We'll get into it. Also tonight, what I was just talking about with Connell. The 36-year-old from Texas, Joe Rogan, even suggesting that man right there, James Tallarico, should consider running for president. Is he the future of the Democratic Party? We're going to ask him here in a moment. Plus, it's the American dream, or at least part of it, right? Owning a home. Well, the Senate today advancing its first bipartisan housing bill in a decade. One lawmaker even exclaiming, hallelujah. Are your housing prayers about to be answered? But first tonight here from the Hill, America's largest city on alert tonight after 4 people are killed by gunfire in a prominent Manhattan skyscraper. New York authorities identifying that 27-year-old from Las Vegas who walked right into 345 Park Avenue with an AR-15 style weapon. That building, home to the National Football League and the financial giant Blackstone. An off-duty New York City police officer among the 4 innocent people who were killed. Our Nancy Liu is in Las Vegas with what is known there as even the NYPD are headed over there. But first to our Marcus Espinosa with what authorities are saying on the ground in New York City tonight. Marcus?
Hey, Blake, good evening. This is still very much an active scene. Behind me, there's a different background because they put up a temporary wall to block off that area, and they've been bringing out evidence bags throughout the day. In fact, to my left over here, there's a CSU unit that's been bringing in evidence bags from that building to their van there. So very much an active scene. But let's recap the timeline here of what happened from when that shooter traveled from far across the country over here, basically coming from Nevada over a 2-day span and then arriving in Manhattan on Monday. And then at that point, entering into the building at 6:38 and then beginning that rampage there as well. So this was a chaotic scene yesterday when this unfolded as well. Immediately shooting that officer that you spoke about there when he entered the building, fired shots in that lobby, and then went to an elevator, went up to the 33rd floor, shot somebody there as well. That turned out, he ended up shooting somebody, an NFL employee who's in critical but stable condition as well, the lone survivor from the gunshot wound there, but made his way up there and then ended up turning the gun on himself, and the mayor speaking on this as well.
The note was found on the suspect that he stated he had CTE. He seemed to have blamed the NFL. The NFL headquarters was located in the building, and he mistakenly went up the wrong elevator bank.
Now, Blake, the shooter asked apparently in his note there for his brain to be studied, and apparently that's why he did not shoot himself in the head, but instead in the chest there. So the motivation, according to authorities here, was to send a message to the NFL. He was blaming the NFL for what he claims he had CTE. So a whole lot to uncover here in this investigation.
Marcus Espinosa live for us tonight in New York. Marcus, thank you. You heard from the New York City mayor there, Eric Adams. Other New York City mayoral candidates responding to that shooting. Adams, of course, running in that race. The former New York governor, independent mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo, posting this message saying, horrified by the shooting in Midtown, I'm grateful for the courage of our NYPD and first responders, and my prayers are with the victims and their families. The Democratic mayoral candidate, Zohran Mamdani, who has criticized the NYPD in the past, posting last night, quote, I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting in Midtown. I'm holding the victims, their families, and the NYPD officer in critical condition in my thoughts. Grateful for all of our first responders on the ground. But tonight, there are still questions about that shooter his cross-country travel and why he potentially targeted the offices of the National Football League. Our Nancy Liu is out west tonight with what she is learning there. Nancy?
Well, Blake, we are just northwest of Los Angeles because Shane Tamura had played football here at Granada Hills Charter High School. He graduated in 2016, and by many accounts, here inside John Elway Stadium, Tamura was very much a star running back. Well, authorities say Tamura had a long history of mental illness and that he blamed the NFL for what he believed was CTE. That's a brain disease found in people who play contact sports, but that can only be diagnosed after death. As you heard Marcus mention, there's a note. Well, Tamura left that and made reference to NFL player Terry Long and how the NFL Hall of Famer killed himself. Tamura's note also included a plea saying, "Study my brain, please, and I'm sorry." Now, Tamura never played in the NFL, and there's no indication he had any prior communication with the league. Sometime after high school, Tamura moved from Southern California to Las Vegas. We know last night, Las Vegas police searched a home extensively in a gated community. That's where he apparently lived with his father, a retired officer with LAPD. Shane Tamura held a concealed carry permit in Nevada, worked in surveillance at Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas. He was scheduled to work the overnight shift, Blake, on Sunday. He never showed up.
Nancy Liu, live for us tonight. Nancy, thank you. Joining me now, Michael Balboni, former New York State Homeland Security Advisor, Deputy Secretary as well for Public Safety. Mike, nice to see you as always. Sorry under these circumstances. There are so many questions here, right? And among them, you think of that image of him holding that AR-15 style weapon, walking into one of the biggest or a massive skyscraper in New York City and being able to carry this out. What is your assessment 24 hours later?
You're absolutely right. There's a tremendous number of questions that need to be answered. First is, how did this individual target this particular building, the NFL? What type of research did he do? Obviously, we're going to want to know what his social media posts have been, what the internet searches revealed. Did he train? Did he go to a range in Nevada and train with the AR-15 style weapon? Did he modify it? And so, how did he do that? The fact that he drove cross country and then double parked in front of the building, right, walking just, I think it was less than 100 feet or so, and going in and spraying the lobby with gunfire, that is something that is completely out of any type of anticipation by law enforcement or security forces. There's no way to have predicted that to happen. So we got to find out why.
Right, and these massive buildings there, these skyscrapers in New York, you often walk in and there's a big security presence and you have to show a badge or there's security layers. And you often get to know these security guards, right? Because these folks show up every single day at work. Hey, how are you? So on and so forth. One of the security guards there is among the 4 victims as well, Mike.
And so the individual that was there on scene is an off-duty NYPD police officer that's part of a program called Paid Detail, which essentially allows them to wear uniform and then provide security services to a client like this, a Class A building. And the benefit there is that they're wearing uniform, and that is seen as a deterrence. But it also can make this individual a target. And when you have to take into account the time of day that this happened, 6:30 at night, it's after hours, and this is not the normal rhythm, obviously, within that building, to have an individual come in carrying a weapon. And so, obviously, it caught everybody by surprise at this moment.
It seemed like the target was the National Football League, Blackstone, which is one of the biggest financial institutions in that building as well. I got to imagine that you and folks in your world who try to help individuals and companies navigate safety are getting calls nonstop. What's that like right now?
All day, and a lot of the conversation revolve around, have we done enough? we do have, again, this Class A building are the best buildings in New York and frankly in any city. And that means that they have the resources, they have the personnel, and they put together the security networks to be able to prevent these types of things from happening. However, even the best, most comprehensive security system can be taken down by something that is completely unanticipated, random, and determined. This individual who did not care, looks like he wanted to die doing this attack, and therefore, when you have that determined shooter like that, so difficult to stop.
How do you expect the NYPD to respond from here?
I believe that the NYPD is going to do what they do best, which is reach out to the private sector. They have some great programs where they partner with the private communities, and they begin to talk about, let's assess and reassess what we do and how we do it. There'll be all sorts of talks about the utilization of more technology, perhaps locking down the buildings after hours better, if that seemed to be an issue. But again, these are things that have come out from a top-to-bottom analysis, which I know that that not only this building, but the buildings in and around New York are going to be participating in right now.
Michael Balboni, former New York State Homeland Security Advisor, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, still to come tonight here on the Hill. He is just 36 years old. He's a Democrat from Texas and seemed to get the stamp of approval from Joe Rogan.
That's because you need to run for president. Yeah. We need someone who's actually a good person.
No laughing matter, though. Could the Texas State Representative James Tallarico be the Democratic Party's next rising star? He is with us live, other side of the break. Plus, President Trump returns from Scotland, and he returns to this. Tim Scott saying hallelujah alongside Elizabeth Warren. What is that all about, and what it could mean for your next mortgage? And the president revealing new details on why he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-A-Lago. Those comments aboard Air Force One today. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman, back on the other side of the break in 4 minutes.
Now. There is reason and good reasons to be disillusioned. I guess all I'm pushing back on is that second step of it's always going to be this way.
Right. It doesn't have to be this way.
That is the key step.
Right.
So
that's because you need to run for president. We need someone who's actually a good person.
Laughing about it now, we'll see. That's Joe Rogan urging the Texas Democratic State Representative James Tallarico to run for president. Tallarico's interview with Rogan drawing national attention. Happened about 10 days ago or so. He's been in the headlines since, touted as a fresh face for Democrats, even floated as some who maybe could help turn Texas blue. Tallarico, just 36 years old, huge following on the TikTok that the kids love. Nearly 1 million followers. He's a progressive Democrat who represents the city of Austin, elected in 2018. Tallarico right now possibly weighing a 2026 run for the United States Senate. He's also a devout Christian, former seminary student, former public school teacher. His emergence comes as the national party, the Democratic Party, struggles without a leader, really struggles without an identity. New polling shows nearly 65% of voters with an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party, the lowest rating in more than 3 decades. During that interview with Rogan, Tallarico also shared what he thinks is the biggest divide right now in U.S. politics.
I've done this for 4 terms now. I think of politics now less as left versus right and much more as top versus bottom. Yeah. Because you're right. I just see how we are all pitted against each other.
Gotta wonder if that's the argument that's coming. Joining me now, first time here on News Nation, I believe, certainly first time here on the Hill, James Tallarico, Democrat from Texas. Hello, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so of course, I've watched the videos, I've watched what you've had to say, but I want to hear it from you and for our audience here on News Nation and those listening to us on Sirius XM. The future of the Democratic Party as you see it is what?
Well, I think my party has to get outside its comfort zone. The last election should be a wake-up call for Democrats at every level. And it's why I went on Joe Rogan. It's why I've been on Fox News. It's why I've been on the Christian Broadcasting Network. We have to meet people where they're at. and we've got to build our coalition into something much bigger than it is today, because politics at its most fundamental level is about addition, not subtraction. And that's something my party has struggled with in recent years.
So how do you know, there's Cory Booker, for example, senator, was on the Senate floor today going after a couple Democrats. Gavin Newsom, as prominent of a figure in the Democratic Party, also said this recently. I want to play those clips and then get your reaction on the other side.
It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines.
We got to go on offense. No more defense. Go on offense. Fight fire with fire.
I don't know you personally, obviously, but I've seen a lot of the interviews. You seem like a mild-mannered kind of guy. You've said in the past that politics feel like pro wrestling and that people are sick of a blood sport. So
Yeah.
are Newsom and Booker right there, or do they need to tone it down a little?
Well, I don't think you fight fire with fire. I think you fight fire with water. But I think what they are touching upon that is true is that you don't fight a fire with a dripping faucet. You fight a fire with a fire hose. And so we can't mirror the same kind of destructive politics that we've seen too often on the other side. We have to offer something better, something positive and constructive and productive, but it can't be weak. It can't be mealy-mouthed. We have to stand on principle. We have to be firm in our convictions. And then we've got to take that message into places where Democrats may not typically go. We have to talk to people we don't typically talk to because the current size of our coalition isn't big enough. I know we lost to President Trump by 1.5 points, but we really shouldn't be, I think, that close to begin with when it comes to someone like Donald Trump. We should be having a 60% majority in this country, and that's going to take time to build.
So when you say that the Democrats need to offer something better, obviously look, a year ago, we weren't talking about James Tallarico and Zohran Mamdani. We were talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, right, for your side of the aisle. Offer something better, as I hear you say it. Does that include democratic socialism?
I think it's going to require a giant tent. And so that's going to include some Democratic socialists like the mayor of New York, but it's also going to include Democrats like Joe Manchin from West Virginia. If we're going to have a winning coalition in this country, it's got to range from people on the far left to people who are in the middle and some people who are on the right who may feel uncomfortable with what they're seeing in the Trump White House. So should your party sort of hold Zohran Mamdani up as a potential key figure going forward? No, I think he's a key figure in New York City. Okay. But I think you're going to have different figures in places like Texas or West Virginia or Oklahoma. This is the key to winning power and making people's lives better, is having that big tent. And that's something that we've struggled with because too often people in my party want to have a small, insular, pure group where everyone agrees on 100% of the issues. And again, that sounds more like a social club than it does a political party, because a political party is built to win elections and then to use that power to improve people's lives on healthcare, on education, on housing. I mean, that's the purpose of politics. And it feels like my party has forgotten that in the last few election cycles. I mentioned that there's some folks talking about you for the United States Senate down there in Texas. Colin Allred lost by like 7.5 points or so last go around. He's running again. Are you going to decide by the end of the summer there, James, as it relates to the Senate? I am hoping to make a decision soon. Honestly, I've been a little distracted because we have a special legislative session that the governor called just a week ago, and they're trying to ram through a mid-decade redistricting attempt. Yeah. And this is really dangerous for everybody, not just Democrats, because what's happening is President Trump and Governor Abbott are trying to rig the next election. I know that sounds dramatic, but they've just passed this big, beautiful bill that's kicking millions of people off their health care. And now, by redrawing the political maps, they're trying to insulate themselves from the will of the voters. It's a big story in Texas and other states, and Democrats are trying to grapple with it. You're on the Hill, though, James. So when I ask you that you're going to make your decision soon, are we talking about the upcoming months? How soon? Well, this special legislative session is going to last until the end of August. Once that's over, I'll be able to make a decision about how I can best serve. And I am looking at the U.S. Senate seat, and so I'm hoping to focus on that after I get through my current job. Okay.
When you're in town, shoot us a note. We'll have you up here on set. James Tallarico with us tonight here on The Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on The Hill. Tackling the country's housing crisis. There was a fascinating dynamic here in this town today. Democrats and Republicans, for the first time in a decade, agreeing on a housing measure. One senator even saying hallelujah. But what does it actually mean? I'm going to show you. Plus, the Epstein case. President Trump talking on Air Force One today, what he had to say, and what she asked of Congress today when we return. Welcome back here to The Hill, 6:30 here on the East Coast and in Washington. President Trump currently traveling back from Scotland. He's set to land probably in a half hour or so. The president today cutting ribbons, inking new trade deals as well during his trip ahead of his August 1st trade deadline on Friday. The president comes back here with a host of issues as well. Our Kelly Meyer live at the White House with the very latest. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. One might say a hole-in-one on that EU trade deal, but the details still need to be worked out. He is set to arrive here back at the White House in the next hour, so he's returning with that trade deal under his belt and a potential trade truce with China. Take a listen to this.
I just had a phone call from Scott Bessent and had a very good meeting with China. And it seems that, I mean, they're going to brief me tomorrow. We'll either approve it or not. But he felt very good about the meeting.
President Trump's Treasury Secretary says China could see high tariffs if it keeps buying Russian oil. President Trump says the 10-day deadline for Russia to reach that ceasefire agreement with Ukraine starts right now, or else it risks secondary sanctions. So that the Kremlin has to make this deal by next Friday. And the president also giving more details today on his fallout with Jeffrey Epstein over what he says Epstein is stealing his workers. Today he was asked if they were young women workers, and the president said yes, they were workers in his spa, he says. Blake?
Yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. Kelly Meyer live for us tonight over at the White House. Kelly, thank you. All right, so when the president lands back home, upcoming minutes here, he's going to return to something he might never have imagined. Senators, look at this picture. Senators Tim Scott and Elizabeth Warren today agreeing on something.
Is there any issue that brings this nation together? I'm here to say, hallelujah, we have found one. It is housing.
For the first time in a decade, the Senate Banking Committee advanced bipartisan legislation to try to tackle the housing crisis. It includes, for example, expanding building opportunities and opportunity zones, streamlining local construction processes, and a 5-year pilot program for home repair loans. Now, here's the problem for so many. Let me walk you through it real quick. Housing prices, they have gone vertical. Okay, so this is the Case-Shiller report, which is put out every month, once a month, which looks at housing across this country. I'm going to take you back here to the start of the century, 2000. You can see, basically, we had the great financial crisis here where it rose and dropped, but look at that, and especially since COVID, just vertical. Average housing price right now starting to get close to $500,000 or so. In the Case-Shiller report today, cities that went up, for example, over the past year. They look at the 20 biggest cities. Tampa, or these are cities that decline, excuse me. Tampa, Dallas, San Francisco, they went down, right? Good news if you're looking for a home in some of those cities. But look at what went up in some of the major cities. You could see New York City, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Boston, all basically at around 5% or higher. New York City, 7.5%. With me now, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor, and Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden-Harris campaigns. Hello to you both.
Hello, Berman.
Thanks for being here. This was a big issue in the campaign. Housing, like we saw this in every single poll. I'm sure you saw this in every single poll. And finally, it seems like Congress is going to do something. Is this enough?
I've been taking some notes while you were talking about my ideas on how to fix this.
So pop up. So I asked Mick earlier for Mick's housing priorities. Okay. And here's what Mick gave us. Show us that graphic.
The former home builder.
Mick, who is a former home builder who started in property rights. Do we have it? No. Property rights, he says, and incentivized building.
And I've sort of worked it down to more summary.
Show your summary.
Yeah, flip the page. Can somebody get this? This is pretty simple right there. Build more housing. So that's it. That's all that it is. Here's the difficulty. Here's why we are where we are. The last 2 or 3 generations, people have moved into wonderful neighborhoods. They say, oh, wow, I really like this. I'd like it to stay like this. I don't want any more sprawl. I don't want any more traffic. So you know what? I'm going to vote for my local leaders who don't allow any more housing. And the industry, including me, has said for 40 years now, you know what? If you do that, your kids and grandkids aren't going to be able to afford housing. So we have underbuilt in this nation for the last 40 years.
And I don't want to rain on the parade that was the Senate Banking Committee today, because that's great news, something bipartisan for the first time in a decade. But it sounds like you're saying the federal government can't fix this.
There's some really good stuff in the bill. There's some streamlining of regulations. There's so they work on NEPA, which is I think Dan knows that's a big deal. And there's some incentivizing there to build more housing. Okay. But face it, right now land use is a local decision, and everybody who votes for the local town and county councilman doesn't want new houses in their neighborhood.
Explain your priorities to me, Dan, of what you think needs to happen here.
Well, I think Mick is right, by the way, that building more housing is sort of the underlying goal here, but there's 3 things that I think you have to focus on to actually get that done. First is supply. Is there enough housing overall? And to me, that's about partly the red tape. Mick mentioned NEPA. It's a big environmental law. Okay. This can be a barrier to getting stuff done fast in a streamlined fashion. It's also a good law that protects water quality and is important, so you don't want to ram something through NEPA to destroy it, but you can streamline it, which this bill does some good work on. Secondly, you've got cost, and that's both about cost to build stuff, so tariffs for lumber from Canada, not a good idea, but some coalition work to get prevailing wage rates down a bit, if the unions can buy into that, can also help making the construction itself less expensive. That can be helpful. And then third is access, and I think Mick may disagree, but there's a whole generation between your graphic, between that financial recession of 2008 and COVID, who got stuck with high student loan payments, no jobs, rising housing costs, and some intervention to give folks some help on the access side is really important.
Now, there's probably some people screaming through the TV right now, and I'll address it, because they're probably saying, just lower interest rates, Jay Powell, that'll help things.
A little bit. I mean,
well, yeah, except that if you do that now, when tariffs then actually hit, if Trump is serious, and of course we don't know with any of these deadlines, and then that gets a hyperinflated economy, that's not going to help with costs at all. Mick?
He's not wrong. Inflation, the tariff is still creating this uncertainty. It's why the trip was really important for Trump this week, for the economy this week, because the more sort of trade uncertainty that they take off the table. I don't think it's a finalized deal with the UK. I don't think it's a finalized deal with the EU.
What do you mean by that?
That at least we're moving towards a time where Trump doesn't walk out on a Tuesday and say, I'm tariffing everybody at 50%, which is what Dan is talking about, can drive uncertainty in housing prices because of the materials and so forth.
You want to show your graphic one more time?
Look, where is it? There. Build more houses. See, I can't even pick. See, look at that.
We'll leave it there. Both these gentlemen, other side of the break. Thanks guys. Appreciate it. All right, still to come. President Trump offers, that's one way to put it, new details about Jeffrey Epstein. The president was asked about this repeatedly today about Air Force One, and he explained, I think for the first time in detail, why he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-A-Lago. You are going to hear that sound and what Congress is now saying to Ghislaine Maxwell on the other side.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
I have to tell the truth.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
That's an opinion, not a fact.
Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central, only on News Nation. News for all Americans.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. While aboard Air Force One earlier today on his way back from overseas, President Trump breaking a little bit of news regarding his relationship at one point in time with Jeffrey Epstein and explaining why he kicked Epstein out of Mar-A-Lago.
People were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is also currently serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking related to Epstein's crimes. Earlier today, some news on her. She demanded immunity from the House Oversight Committee in exchange for her testimony. The committee immediately rejected that request. Full panel here with me now. Mick Mulvaney back once again. You know him. Also here, Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor. Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist. And Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden-Harris campaigns. Hello to you all. Aaron, I want to start with you because your advice to the president here, you used to speak for him at one point in time in a different life, would be what?
It would be stop taking the bait and stop answering the questions about Epstein if you don't want the story to continue with your name at the front of it. You can move this to the Department of Justice and FBI. The House is consistently looking into the investigatory matter as well. You can point to your agencies and say this is an ongoing investigation. They will have the updates. And I would encourage those agencies to put a communications plan together so there is not a vacuum of information, even if they don't have anything new, because when there's a vacuum of information, that's when conspiracy theories start, and this will get all out of control.
Is that damned if you do, damned if you don't? Because you say don't answer the questions, move on. Then the obvious follow-up is, well, you're not being transparent. And I guess that's kind of the situation where the president is right now.
I disagree with that because I don't think that the president is being accused of not being transparent.
No, that's what I'm saying. If he doesn't answer the questions, then you get accused of that. That's what I'm saying. If it's almost no win here for him,
right? No, you know what? I think he stands firm and says this is not something we're going to discuss anymore. How many times are the media going to belabor this? Go turn on the local news anywhere in the country. Get out of the Acela corridor in the DC bubble. This is not on the news that people are talking about. People don't care the way the DC bubble does.
Chief hat on for a second.
Yeah, I don't think he'd take that advice.
Yeah, I don't think he would either, but it would be my advice.
But let me tell you why he doesn't take the advice.
I want to.
So the question is then, what if he's not going to take that advice? What do they do? And I think they just have to be brutally transparent. It's consistent with his brand.
Yes.
One of the reasons he's getting this blowback on this is all of a sudden he went from transparency to there's absolutely nothing to see here. Why are we talking about this? And that's not internally consistent. So I'd tell him, look, just put it out. There's nothing in there criminal
just
about
release
it.
the files.
That's it.
Well, let's be real clear. The Trump administration and the Trumpers and the MAGA world with their conspirators have been talking about this. They drive this negative narrative. And all of a sudden, Trump's pivoted. And I always say, the only reason you would pivot, I know you're going to disagree, is that his name is in there. Not just his name, but something of his conduct is in those files.
Your party kind of pivoted on this one, too. All of a sudden.
Well, we want to be as supportive of the Trump administration.
Hard liberals are bad, aren't they?
I think Aaron's advice is as good as you're going to get on this one, but he's in huge trouble here because he drove this narrative for 10 years on Epstein. I want to make this point, though. Local news, perhaps, Aaron, but how many times we asked on this network, should Kamala Harris have gone on Joe Rogan? How important is Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan is banging the drum on this. This is a fire that is not going to go away.
I just disagree. The MAGA base hasn't moved away from Trump. Look at his polling. It is staying consistently where
that doesn't mean they're not happy with it.
But members have. The reason that there's nobody in that building right behind us right now is because there were Republicans who were willing to sign a discharge petition, the most anti-leadership thing you can do, because they made a decision. It's better for me politically to be for transparency than it is to be with Donald Trump. And that's where I think he's got his big problem.
And the bigger problem here is this, I think, is emblematic of everything. He came in as a guy who's going to drain the swamp, unrig the system, fight for you. And this issue, as much as I care about this issue and Epstein and the scandal, it was also the demonstration of his power to shake things up. The fact that he's now doing this, which seems clearly to protect himself, I think shows the emperor has no clothes on all of it.
You say everything, though. The White House would say trade deals, budget deals, peace deals.
Trade deals for what? The UK is a neutral trading partner for us. Indonesia is the lowest country in trade in Asia. This deal with the EU apparently is already a nothing burger. Nothing there.
But here's why Trump doesn't have any credibility on this. He's released the MLK files, the RFK files, the JFK files, his own medical records, but he doesn't want to release this. And by the way, it's not about the grand jury. It's about what those investigation files have.
Hang here for a second, Scott, and I want to bring in Jesse Weber, News Nation legal contributor, because the other headline today on this, Jesse, was Ghislaine Maxwell's team asking the House Oversight Committee, legal team, asking the House Oversight Committee for immunity. And I want to bring Scott Bolden in here as well, because Scott's represented clients in this matter. But Jesse, I'll start with you. They asked for immunity, and the House shot it down like that. What happens next?
I am not surprised she asked for it. I'm not surprised they rejected it. Why? Well, first of all, she's got a pending appeal. She doesn't want to jeopardize that in any which way. If she were to get a new trial, she doesn't want anything to jeopardize that. They are not going to grant immunity to a convicted child sex trafficker. The optics of that look terrible. By the way, credible? She was charged with perjury. She's in a very delicate position right now where is she going to say whatever she needs to say to get on the good side of the Trump administration? Because again, it seems to me, with her pending appeal, she keeps giving an out to President Trump to grant her some sort of protection, right? The idea is, well, I should have been protected under Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. You're a deal maker, President, art of the deal. I shouldn't have been prosecuted. And this is a very delicate situation. So I don't know if she's going to get the upper hand at the end of the day from the government.
Scott, you understand what her legal team is doing.
Yeah, it's just pretty process-driven. I've represented clients before the Hill on these types of issues, and getting the questions beforehand is fundamental because she's not going to answer those questions. The lawyers are going to be answering those questions. That's one thing. But also asking for immunity. But watch what they're not talking about, and only the president could give her is a commuter sentence or to even pardon her. That's a long shot, if you will. But it comes down to the House, Senate, and even the White House. How bad do you want this information? And DOJ immunity that they gave her for her to talk with Blanche doesn't cover the House or the Senate. So lots of different issues.
Jesse, I'm going to give you the last word here. I want to bring the other folks in. Aaron, you used to work up on the Hill for a very long time. You know the building.
Not that long.
For long enough, I guess, right? Long
it had
enough.
nothing to do with your age.
How many years?
It had nothing to do with your age.
Who else?
6.5.
Okay, there we go.
My intern.
What do you think happens here up on the Hill as they try to pursue this?
Yeah, I think the investigations are going to have to be what the House leans into in order to keep members from going after the discharge petition. I think that the Speaker's going to have to find a way to codify his members so this does not continue to get out of hand. He's going to have to do it before they come back from August. The Senate's a different barrel completely when it comes to this. Should they move forward with whatever their investigation is on it, that will likely be much more closed behind doors and then start to come out in the long term. The bigger problem here is the House for President.
Former Congressman?
I don't think she ever says anything in Congress.
I don't think she does either.
I don't think so either.
I think Trump throws his hands up and said, we tried to do immunity, but she won't. She'll take the fifth, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Jesse, I said I would give you the last word here. If this is where the path that she's going down with Congress, and Congress has a whole bunch before them, especially legally, where does this go?
So taking aside from the fact she might not be credible, if she were to say, hey, if I come out and say President Trump had no knowledge of anything that was going on, was not a participant in this anyway, I will make a public statement in some forum. What's the value of that? And I wonder what the conversations might be happening behind closed doors. But who knows?
I got an answer for that,
No,
Jesse.
you don't.
Yes, I do. I get a pardon or my sentence is commuted. If I get that, I'll say whatever you want me to say. You've called me a liar already.
There you go. I mean, I think there's a reason this conversation is happening right now, as opposed to before she was ultimately prosecuted.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jesse Weber hanging with us until 6:50. How about that? Appreciate that, sir.
With cool backdrops.
Cool backdrops, Vic says. Talk to you soon. Thanks, bud.
You got it.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Obviously, this is not going to be the last of this. The president talking about it today aboard Air Force One. All right, still to come on the other side of the break. The president, he was over there highlighting his new golf course. And Mick, Dan owns one of these things. Why am I talking about this and not President Trump playing golf today? I'm going to explain that to you on the other side of the break. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, Henadoba will be talking to Mayor Eric Adams' office for the latest on the shooting in New York City. That's 7 o'clock Eastern, 8 minutes away, right here on News Nation. What is trending and my take? Other side of the break.
Can't miss that.
What?
Call now.
All right, if you're just getting home tonight, trying to catch up on the day's top stories, here is what's trending right now on thehill.com. First story this evening, Josh Hawley, Republican senator from the state of Missouri, introduces a bill to provide $600 tariff rebates to adults and children. This, of course, a reaction to the tariffs from the president. We'll see if that gets any traction. How about this? Well, he comes on the show all the time. He's a really nice guy. Congressman Tim Burchett, kicked by a horse. Ugh, he broke a rib. His office, though, says that he's doing just fine. We wish the congressman well. Hope he's doing okay. And finally, The president ends his Scotland trip with golf before facing some economic blitz at home. The president was there abroad touting he was doing a lot, but one of the things that he was doing today, a ribbon cutting for his new golf course in Aberdeen, Scotland.
Please welcome onto the tee the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
All right, so there you go. Time for my take. Kind of looks straight there to me, I guess. And of course, that was a driver in hand for the president. But now I want you to look not at the president, rather a putter. That right there, kind of funky, right? Here it is next to a conventional putter so that you can see the comparison. The one on the left is made by Lab Golf. Now, that company was started by a man named Bill Pressey inside a trailer. And as the Wall Street Journal reports, he would pitch his unconventional contraption from the back of his car back in the day. It would slowly gain popularity, and then a moment. Back in June, the pro golfer J.J. Spaun, using a Lab putter, would sink a 64-foot putt on the final hole to win the U.S. Open, and that kind of moment tends to get some attention. The Journal now reporting that a private equity firm just bought a majority stake in Lab Golf for, yes, you are reading that right, $200 million. So while the president may have wanted this week's golf story to include his new course in the birthplace of the game, Scotland, it actually turns out that the big news is from right here at home, more specifically Creswell, Oregon, population of roughly 5,000, and the headquarters of an upstart that made it big. While we can assume that the executives of the company probably spent a lot of time on the greens in their day, they are seemingly going to be getting a lot more green going forward. It is an American success story worth highlighting as we sign off tonight here on The Hill. How about that? Thank you so much for watching us tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm Blake Burman. Have a great one.